People of the world, hello and welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language. This, the 154th episode, a very auspicious number for absolutely no reason, preparing for the 2021 workplace. As I've talked about a million times before, I am very happy that we're going to be spending a lot less in gas. There's going to be a lot less people suffering in car accidents, that sort of thing. So we're going to be talking about the remote workplace. If you're an entrepreneur or business owner, how does this affect you? What can you do to make your life better in this incredible year? Final decision to ban Trump sent to the Oversight Board. Pretty big deal here via Facebook. We'll talk about that. Twitter's decentralized social network, Blue Sky. I'll be honest with you, I don't know a thing about it, but we're going to learn together. YouTube rival sues Google, the never-ending stream of lawsuit that happens when you are at the top. Google's advertising practices targeted by an EU antitrust probe. Again, it's tough to be the king. Why Roku could have significant advertising growth. All that and more on the show today. Starts now. Thank you to everyone currently on the live stream, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and thank you for hitting that like button. Much appreciated. Preparing for the 2021 workplace via Inc.com. All links to all articles right there in the description. As the business world heads into 2021 with great optimism, a cloud of uncertainty remains hanging over the heads of many leaders. According to the article, execs are faced with two different realities: a pre-vaccine world of remote work and a post-vaccine world of figuring out how to safely engage with employees, job candidates, and customers. As far as this dude is concerned, we are evolving as an entire species, and we have an opportunity to make the world a much safer, a much calmer, a much more pajamified world, which is what we all need. We need more jams. Do you understand? What I want is more meetings where people put on a suit and tie top with jammy bottoms. This is the yin-yang of balance that is required. To all of those folks that are considering going back to the office, to all the business owners that are considering going back to the office because they like to, check in on company culture, you may want to check in with your employees first and send an anonymous survey to them saying, hey, what are your thoughts? Would you rather work from home? If so, why? If you are on board with the remote work environment, then I applaud you. Companies like Facebook are applauding themselves for having half of their workforce working remotely, which I think is ridiculously behind the curve. Again, the number of people on the roads, it directly relates to deaths. Let's not forget this. Less cars on the roads means less deaths. So if you're a business owner that doesn't require your staff to be on completely pointless and meaningless in-person meetings, then perhaps you are doing the right thing. Perhaps you are even saving a life. You are certainly reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so I could not more fervently believe that it is our responsibility as intelligent citizens of the earth to work from home whenever possible. Not only are you doing all the things I just mentioned, you are also giving people the opportunity to have autonomy. You are placing trust in them. And I'm not saying every remote worker is going to work well for you. You may have had a nightmarish experience with workers in the past. But trust me when I tell you, this is the present. The old way of doing things is the past. It is, of course, unfortunate that a global pandemic really caused this to transpire in regards to this fundamental change in how we work. But just take a look at Zoom stock if you're wondering if we should go back to the office. Now, my heart goes out to commercial real estate folks who are struggling. Let's say you bought a property 2 years ago. You put, all your life savings into it. You purchased, and now you're struggling. I get it. For lack of a better word, that sucks. But this is the nature of investing. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us move forward collectively into a new environment in which we are all much happier. Oh, and you're also saving your employees, 50 minutes. Anyway, back and forth. So it says, don't let location limit hiring efforts. One of our best, they're all our best employees, but we have an incredible employee here at Send It Rising by the name of Gabriela, who lives in Mexico. Her English is better than mine. She lived in Canada She has incredible graphic design skill, and we could not be more happy to have her on the team. She is currently working with her sister to create a comic strip for Send It Rising, which is going to be pretty amazing. And so when I hire, I go to Indeed and I hire nationwide. Not only can I offer better competitive salaries based on location, but also I get the best of the best. I get hundreds of resumes, and I can pick the cream of the crop because what do I care where you work? I've worked with the state of Florida, Minnesota, California, New York, North and South Carolina, Nevada, I think, and I'm probably missing one or two. As a business owner, it can be scary to try to W-2 an employee in a different state. And trust me, it sucks having to deal with the state of Wyoming, for example. I've gone back and forth with them a million times. But at the end of the day, if you use a provider like Paychex or ADP, it's not that hard. It's not that difficult to W-2 someone somewhere else. And the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. And so don't let location limit hiring efforts is number one on the list from Inc.com. Number two, plan for a permanent framework of virtual recruiting and hiring. What do they mean by that? As the talent pool grows, according to the article, expansion of recruiting and hiring practices must also occur. Mark Labasco, VP of Talent Solutions at LinkedIn, muses, quote, according to our latest Future of Recruiting report, 81% of talent professionals agree virtual recruiting will continue past COVID, and 70% say it will become the new standard. As we transition to the new standard of hybrid workforce, quote, so will a hybrid hiring process that combines virtual and in-person elements. Again, there is almost no need for in-person in 2021. I think if you are forcing folks to physically move into another space, you are kind of missing the point. Number three, consider a variety of ways to collaborate. Sabri Tozin, LinkedIn VP of Engineering, encourages businesses to think about how they build community through software. He explains that while video calls are a nice way to connect, they can cause fatigue. This is also true. I currently have one morning meeting that lasts about 45 minutes. The idea of an hour and a half meeting, 2-hour meetings is ridiculous. I don't understand what you could possibly be talking about for that length of time. Keep it short, keep it sweet. It is difficult at times to build rapport. So honestly, the first 10 minutes of the morning meeting at Send It Rising is just jokes and laughing and just water cooler stuff. And then we move into the to-do list. And if you have a set of intelligent, smart, hardworking people, you'll find that it really shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. You just go through what needs to be talked about and then individual calls from there. You could make an argument that it's hard to develop a community of, say, 500, 1,000 people. I can't speak to that because obviously my company is not that large, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it can be done. So number 4, prioritize employee well-being and learning. Regardless of where people are working from, employee well-being will remain critical in 2021. As Justin Black, head of people science for LinkedIn's Glint platform, predicts, quote, to tackle well-being, smart leaders will continue to dismantle programs and processes that don't add value and reimagine the basics of work life, physical offices, standard operating hours, how meetings happen, and why. One of my employees recently, I won't go into the details, but just a string of bad luck. And it is an honor to be able to say to this employee, hey, look, life happens. It's fine. We've got your back. Don't worry about it. Take the time, flexible work schedule. You're working from home. If she was set up in a position where she physically had to be somewhere, it would have been very difficult for her. Or if I was staunch about some sort of HR policy that says, oh, you have to, you draw a line in the sand, and all of a sudden we have to force her into this difficult and precarious situation amongst the chaos, would be unfair to her. And so a lot of this falls back on company culture. And last but not least, according to the article, go all in on virtual go-to marketing strategies. Prior to the pandemic, businesses were just beginning to dip their toes into the virtual business world, but 2020 accelerated these adoptions. This is something I need to do better at. I was the president of my BNI chapter last year, which was good. I did a lot of networking there, but mostly with folks that I already knew, so just established relationships. I need to get better about going to virtual networking groups and meeting new folks virtually. I admit my own failure there. I have done some one-to-ones, however, with certain folks, and they're always good. And having guests on the show, I feel like, is one of the absolute best ways to begin a relationship. So there you go. 5 ways that workers can prepare for 2021. Moving right along. If you don't have your tea, I highly recommend you get your tea. Oh, it's good and good for you. Final decision to ban Trump sent to oversight board. This from abcnews.com. Facebook said Thursday it was referring the decision to indefinitely suspend Donald Trump's account to its newly formed oversight board to make the final call on what will happen to the former president's accounts. The board was created to operate independently. So this particular Facebook board, as far as I can tell, is a way for Facebook to skirt responsibility. They're going to make boatloads of cash either way. It doesn't really matter to them whether or not they're in charge of this particular. It's almost like, I think the best analogy would be the NFL hiring referees and saying, shoot, it was the ref. Yeah, the ref made the bad call. It is a smart tactic for royalty to basically assign this particularly difficult, I would argue, impossible job. So Facebook saying that this decision to indefinitely suspend Donald Trump is through this board. Who knows how independent this particular board is. But there you go. Facebook's funding the board with an initial commitment of $130 million, according to ABC News. The board took on its first cases a year later this past December. Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts were indefinitely suspended by Facebook on January 7th, just one day after the mob of pro-Trump supporters conducted a violent siege of the U.S. Capitol. At the time, Facebook chief executive Mark Zuckerberg cited risk of violence, etc. So this will be very interesting over the next couple of months to see exactly how the major media figures, social media figures, are going to deal with post-President Trump. There is a viral Bernie Sanders meme going around right now of him at the inauguration of Joe Biden with some very hefty mittens, which is pretty good. So we're definitely ushering in a new age, and we will see what transpires. I do not believe that we are going to see Trump minimized. I really do think that despite these platforms moving away from him or suspending him, that does add more fuel to the fire for a lot of folks. And so the Parlors of the world, I think, are going to continue to see massive growth. And this bifurcation left-right of social media platforms, I think, is just beginning. So if you're a marketer, you probably need to have a finger on the pulse of Parler and these sites, especially with the demographic of conservatives on those sites, and how there's a slightly above 50% margin, according to a study I read, about business ownership. So if you're trying to reach business owners, that sort of thing, understanding Parler is going to be pretty important. Twitter's decentralized social network Blue Sky, according to TheVerge.com, is a decentralized social networking effort. It announced its first major update since 2019. The Blue Sky team released a review of the decentralized web ecosystem and said it's hoping to find a team lead in the coming months. The reviews follows Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey discussing Blue Sky earlier in the month when he called it a standard for the public conversation layer of the internet. Well, that's vague. Here's the deal. Twitter, as I can tell, is dying. Their stock dipped below their initial public offering, with Trump being banned from the platform, with Parler and all of these other social media networks growing with massive numbers. It would appear to me that Twitter doesn't have a path to monetization, as far as I can tell. And there are ads, obviously, and I'm not saying they're going away tomorrow, but I would not purchase Twitter stock. The review outlines a variety of known decentralized systems, according to The Verge. It includes ActivityPub, known for powering the social network Mastodon, the messaging standard XMPP, which powers WhatsApp, and the now defunct Google Talk, and Solid, a decentralization project led by World Wide Web creator Sir Tim Berners-Lee. The report covers how these systems handle key social network elements like discoverability, moderation, and privacy. Okay, here's my problem though. No matter what you do, no matter what decentralization we're talking about here. We're still talking about words, images, and sound. I mean, that's the internet, right? So you can only configure those three things in various ways. And that's pretty much the whole of it. So this decentralized social network is still going to include those things. What can it possibly do that is going to outperform the likes of YouTube and the incredible growth of places like Snapchat? I mean, augmented reality, perhaps Twitter could play in that space. That is obviously going to be a big deal. Back to the article, this doesn't tell us how Blue Sky itself might operate. Exactly, we know nothing. Dorsey said that Blue Sky would, quote, take time to build. If it results in a protocol, that system might be created from scratch, or it might build on an existing standard like ActivityPub. Well, call me crazy, but this is pretty boring to me. So there's something that's going to happen eventually called Blue Sky. Okay, Twitter. YouTube rival sues Google. This bit from BusinessInsider.com. Rumble, based in Toronto, filed a lawsuit in California on Monday claiming that Google had unfairly cost its viewers advertising revenue because of its search algorithms and pre-installation of the YouTube app on Android devices. So when you're a small business, you can do things like have a pre-installed YouTube app sort of thing. You can, the equivalent for a small business, you can sneak your stuff in and people don't care. But once you get big enough, then you get sued. So Rumble here apparently is a YouTube rival filing a lawsuit in California. Interesting. So they're saying that it unfairly cost its viewers advertising revenue because of its search algorithms and pre-installation of the YouTube app. Okay. Quote, Google, through its search engine, was able to wrongfully divert massive traffic to YouTube, depriving Rumble of the additional traffic users' uploads, brand awareness, and revenue it would have otherwise received, according to the complaint. Google has faced a string of antitrust actions over its search dominance in the past few years, drawing attention from U.S. authorities, European Union legislators, and market competitors alike. Yeah, so what is just smart business practice as you're growing becomes an antitrust lawsuit when you're big. Rumble has become popular with conservatives. Oh, of course. Here we go. Parler, Rumble. In the past year or so, encouraged by Republican Representative Devin Nunes and others, the company says it has more than 2 million creators using the site. Yeah, this splitting right down the middle is fairly dominant in our culture. I suppose it's nothing new. Influential right-wingers in the U.S. have taken an aggressive stance against established U.S. tech firms, according to the article, such as Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon, a position lately intensified by the platforms teaming up to essentially block the right-wing social media platform Parler. Currently, Rumble's list of most watched videos include the conservative political commentator Dan Bongino, the Fox News host Sean Hannity, and conservative YouTubers Diamond and Silk. So there you go. Apparently, Rumble is to YouTube what Parler is to Facebook. And so they're going to fight them. They are going to fight them. We'll see what happens. Google's advertising practices targeted by EU antitrust probe. This from Reuters. EU antitrust regulators have sought information from advertisers regarding Google's advertising technology practices. Interesting. A European Commission document seen by Reuters shows. So the EU wants info. Alphabet-owned Google, the world's largest online search engine, has been hit with fines totaling 8.25. I'll let you finish this last word. What do you think it is? Billion euros. That would be $10 billion in the last 3 years for blocking rivals in online shopping, Android smartphones, and online advertising. So if I am in a leadership role in Europe and I want to increase revenue, I'll just go after Alphabet for sure. If I can get 2 billion euros, a billion euros, and spend, 20 million euros litigating to gain that, that's just good economics. So it now faces 2 European Union investigations into its advertising practices focused on technology and data. Now, I'm not saying that Google is some sort of angel floating around in heaven doing the most perfect things all the time, but I am saying there is an incentive for sure from European legislators to grab that money. Google and Facebook together capture over half of the internet ad sales market globally. Both companies are currently the target of a U.S. lawsuit, so it's not just Europe, obviously, over the 2018 deal, which gives Facebook advertiser clients the option to place ads within Google's network of publishing partners. Google said it was cooperating with the commission, whose 13-page questionnaire sent to advertisers this month asked about the impact of using the default setting include Google Display Network, introduced in 2018 for search campaigns in Google Ads. Quote, "We compete with many others in the industry and give people granular control over how their information is used to personalize ads and limit the sharing of personal data to safeguard people's privacy," a Google spokeswoman said. The commission said the questionnaires are part of the investigation into Google's data usage. Quote, "This investigation covers all services of Google." So for me, it's, there are obviously privacy issues. To me, this is reminiscent of clicking the terms of service, which I know some people read. Not all people, of course. But most people are just clicking it. They're moving right along and they're saying, okay. And then they agree to some egregious privacy violation to the tune of 95% of users or whatever. And then the vast majority never go into their privacy settings. They make the privacy settings ambiguous at best in regards to understanding exactly what Google is doing with that data. And then they end up selling it, or they work with Facebook, and it just becomes a problem. So more on this as it unfolds. And last but not least, why Roku could have significant advertising growth. This from finance.yahoo.com. Again, shout out to everyone hitting that like button. It's a big deal. It helps a lot with the algorithm. If you want to chat in the chat box, that also helps promote the video if you want to help me out. And then a comment in the comment section also does the trick. Roku Inc. has grown to become the leading TV and video streaming platform in 2020, but JP Morgan says its true driver of revenue growth in advertising has yet to play out. I don't know if you've noticed, but almost every TV at Walmart is a Roku TV. They are experiencing huge growth as people cut the cord. I literally have 3 of them in my house: living room, bedroom, and kids' bedroom. So the Roku analyst, Corey Carpenter, initiated coverage of Roku's stock with an overweight rating and a $475 price target, apparently. Roku boasts more than 50 million active accounts and users that combined to stream nearly 60 billion hours of content in 2020. Carpenter said this positions the company to take advantage of a, quote, significant advertising opportunity as more marketers shift their dollars towards streaming platforms with large users. So YouTube obviously is the primary thing I use on Roku, Netflix. But when I sign up for a Roku account, they're pitching me hard. They're asking about my preferences. They want me to sign up for a free week of Disney Plus and a million other different options. Roku knows what they're doing. They're trying to monetize. It's actually rather annoying when they get a Roku TV because I just want to turn it on. But no, they need my email address. They need me to set up an account. So they're doing it the right way, although I find it irritating. Advertisers have been investing around $65 billion annually in linear TV, despite an estimated 24% reduction in pay TV households. Over the past 7 years, daily average viewing time for linear TV users is also down 16%. Yeah, it's going away. I mean, we know this. When we look at Super Bowl ads, the numbers, if I recall correctly, are not there. YouTube is such a phenomenal way to get your message out, albeit it is annoying to be clicking on a video that you want to watch and then you get hit by a YouTube ad. I'm aware of that. Avoiding that is possible through YouTube Premium. Roku has a lot to offer advertisers, according to the article, aside from tens of millions of potential eyeballs, and its customers are highly engaged with active accounts streaming 3.5 or more of content per day on average. 3.5 hours. That's a lot. As advertisers ramp up their spending on digital platforms, Carpenter said Roku could show best-in-class growth metrics. And I think they will. I really do. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we summarize, just to mention, I really do appreciate everyone on the show, whether you're watching it live, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, here on YouTube, on the Sender Rising business page, or on my personal LinkedIn, or after the fact on the podcast, or watching the videos, like most folks do, actually, on YouTube after the fact. If you want to be a guest on the show, you will have probably noticed that we've had some incredible guests, Shannon Procise, The Gurns, and many others. Ryan Jinkowitz comes to mind. If you want to be a guest on the show, why don't you shoot us an email, info, that's info@senditrising.com. You can also, catch us on iTunes, Spotify, and about 10 other podcast platforms. Let's summarize. If you are still forcing your employees to drive to a location, I would highly recommend that you meditate, that you contemplate your navel on that one and see whether or not you can get away from that. Now, I know every business is different, and I know that this is not always possible, but oh, for the love of Pete, please, please, please seriously consider it. The main point is not the greenhouse gas emissions, although that is a big deal. It is the fact that you could literally be saving a life. People die on the road every day. Driving is incredibly dangerous. In 100 years, people are going to look back at this time and think, wow, great grandma and great grandpa were heroes. I cannot believe to get a cup of coffee, they would risk their life. I cannot believe how many people were injured and killed in these death machines. They will look at on our transportation as an absolute catastrophe, as a stepping stone to something better. So 2021 workplace, hire remote. If you can hire nationwide, do it. I'm telling you, I have some of the best employees all over the nation. There's no reason why we can't work with East Coast time here on the West Coast. Final decision to ban Trump sent to Oversight Board. I have a sneaking suspicion that Trump is just going to accelerate the growth of Parler and Rumble and places like that. That's what it feels like to me. I think he's going to bring his audience with him. I could be wrong, but we shall see. And then this pretty clearly draws a line in the sand between what will now be considered left-wing social media sites and right-wing social media sites. It's surprising to me, actually, that it's taken this long, but this is the natural evolution of politics and technology. Twitter's decentralized social network, Blue Sky, it's a whole lot of nothing as far as I can tell. Maybe it's because I am technologically ignorant and don't understand just how cool this could be. I fully admit that, but as far as I can tell, it just seems sort of ambiguous and nebulous at this point. YouTube, rival, sues Google. Of course they do. Rumble, which I learned today is Rumble is to YouTube as Parler is to Facebook, which is to say that it is a right-wing YouTube video platform, you could say. So they're suing because, of course they are, because this left-right fight is going to continue. Google's advertising practices targeted by EU antitrust probe. If you're big, you're gonna get beaten up. And why Roku could have significant advertising growth. I don't know. Keep an eye on Roku. You may not think of them as a legitimate advertising platform, but they certainly are. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the show for today. Thanks for swinging on by. Do leave a like. Do leave a comment. It is super helpful. And we will see you all Monday for episode 150.